19. Kahoomalia. Tatrik. The next Friday, when Boki sent me to deliver his sweet potato, I wrapped it in a key leaf and set out on the dusty path that led toward the center of the peninsula. When I came to the worn trail that led to Kiona's house, I gave 3 long whistles and 2 short ones. Within moments Makanui came around a bend in the trail. She laughed when she saw me and I smiled at the sight of her. But she was so thin. I thought that at 8 years old she should be bigger. I wished she could get more food. And I wished I could take her away from here. The leprosy settlement was no place for a child to grow up. If she grew up. Makanui was one of those people who didn't show much sign of our disease. Her face was still clear, and her hands and feet were too. But I knew the doctors must have found some spots somewhere under that long dress she wore. She ran to me now, her hands extended. "Did you bring it?" she squealed. "Shhh, this potato is a secret, remember? You can't tell anyone. Not even Kiona." I stamped on the grasses to make a path to a low rock wall that ran nearby. I picked Makanui up and set her on the stones. Then I handed her the sweet potato. She held its warmth to her cheek. Her face was streaked with dirt and layered with a smile. She said. She closed her eyes and inhaled. "I'm almost afraid to eat it. Because then I won't have it anymore." "Just remember," I said, "next Friday there will be another one. I'll bring the biggest one in Boki's basket." Makanui giggled. "Praise be to the Lord," she said. "You sound just like Kiona." I leaned back against the rock wall and hoisted myself up beside my little friend. I was relieved that I'd thought of a way to deliver Boki's potatoes without angering Kameka or upsetting his wife. But mostly I was glad that I could give Makanui something she truly needed. She took a big bite. "Why doesn't Malia want Boki's potatoes? Isn't she hungry?" "I'm sure she's hungry," I said. "But I guess they make her sad." "But how can potatoes make you sad?" "I don't know. Maybe they're a memory of something bad." Makanui took another bite of the potato and said with her mouth full, "Good memories can make you sad, too. I'm sad when I think of my family." I hadn't thought much about Makanui's life before Kalawao. "What do you remember?" I asked. "I remember eating poi every day." Makanui scooped 3 fingers into the center of the sweet potato and brought its flesh up to her mouth. She said as she licked delicious bits of potato from her fingertips. "And I remember catching shrimps with my father." "What do you remember?" "I remember Yellow Cat snuggling with me at night and waking me up in the morning. I remember walking to school and wishing I could go surf riding instead." Makanui leaned her head against my shoulder. "I remember my mother singing to me when I had bad dreams." She stared at the white cloud puffs that floated in the perfect blue sky. "But I can't remember what my mother looks like. Do you remember what your mother looks like?" I stared into the clouds too, but I couldn't bring back the sunny look of my mother's face. Then I thought about Kimmy. "I remember how my little sister looked," I said. "She looked like you." "Really?" Makanui gripped my shoulder and pulled herself up until she was standing on the rock wall. She stuffed the last of the potato into her mouth and turned to face me. "Is that why you're nice to me, Pia? Why aren't you nice to anyone else?" I looked at my little friend and thought that she was too smart. "I'm nice to Kiona," I said. 2 friends are enough." I stood on the wall and started walking toward the sea. A field mouse peeked its head from between some stones and scuttled along the wall in front of me. I heard Makanui's voice following me. "What about Boki? Is he your friend?" "No." I called back. "Do you hate Boki?" I turned to face her. I put one cautious foot behind the other as I walked backward along the low wall. It wasn't easy because the rocks were loosely stacked and sometimes one would clatter to the ground. I had to be careful or I would fall. I watched Makanui balance herself, arms outstretched. There was a long tear under the sleeve of her brown dress so that now I could see the marks of leprosy in her armpit. Behind her, I saw the great green cliffs of Maloka IR prison walls. "Of course I hate Boki. Everybody hates Boki," I said. "Then why do you live with him?" "Because my family isn't here. Kiona adopted you, and Boki adopted me. If I leave, he will kill me." "You could live with Kameka and Malia. Kameka is a constable. He wouldn't let Boki kill you." I turned around again and walked with my back to Makanui. I fastened my eye on the ocean. Let's see how far we can go on the walls, I yelled. I picked up my pace and spread my arms. Can I go first? I stopped and waited for Makanui to squeeze past me. She led the way along the wall, her body tipping this way and that as she balanced herself. When the wall came to an intersection, she looked both ways and then turned toward the Kruchten-Gurecki crater. Ahead of us I saw Kameka's house. I waited to see if Makanui would turn away when the wall intersected with another one, but she kept going straight toward the place where Kameka and Malia lived. I followed her until I was close enough to the house to see that no one was there. Then I jumped down and said, I have to go now. I have work to do for Boki. I took Makanui's hand and turned her around. I walked with her. She was on the wall and I was on the ground until I saw Kiona's shack. Then I lifted her down and said, go find Kiona. She's probably worried about you. Makanui ran toward her home. Then she stopped and turned around. I liked the sweet potato, she called. SHHH. I warned her. But I doubted that our secret would be ours alone for long. Aloy was probably lurking inside the tall grasses that very minute. When I saw Makanui go inside Kiona's house, I turned and headed for Kameka's place. I looked all around me as I walked, keeping my eyes open for the sight of Pele. As I got closer to Kameka's shelter, I ducked and crawled along the rock wall. When I came to the section of wall that enclosed the shelter, I heard the grunting of a wild pig. I peered over the stones and saw that Kameka had used tree branches to pen the pig. Nearby was a hole in the ground, lined with rocks. Of course. Kameka was preparing to roast the pig. A picture floated across my mind, steam wafting, the smell of roast pork, fingers dipping into a calabash of poi. Kameka eating with my family. I could almost hear my mother's voice. Telling again the story of me as a baby. Of Kameka's first visit, how they'd dragged him in to greet me. How he'd crossed his arms on his chest and grumbled in aloha. How that was the moment when our friendship began. And how it had always been there. At least until I got leprosy. The thought of Kameka's rejection made me hate that pig. I did not want to smell it cooking when I rode across the peninsula. And I didn't want Kameka to enjoy a feast without me. I leaped across the rock wall and kicked at the sticks that formed Kameka's pig pen. I tore at them with my hands and flung them into the grass outside Kameka's stone enclosure. And when the pig ran grunting through the opening and out onto the peninsula, I laughed. That would show Kameka how wrong he'd been. Then I turned and leaped over the wall again. And when I did, I realized I'd been caught. Malia stood there, her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. Why, she whispered. Pia, why do you hate us so much?